I'm Norman Liss, and the name of the program is The Way to Go. I invite you to join me as we explore places to go and things to do. We're going to take a train ride today, and the reason we're taking the train ride is that there is a great exhibit, maybe 3 exhibits all in one at the Hudson River Museum, and it's all about trains. And today we're very fortunate to have with us people who are very intimately responsible, involved with making that exhibit happen. They are both curators. One of my guests is Laura Vookles, who is the curator of collections at the Hudson River Museum and is one of the head curators on this exhibit. And my second guest is Jean-Paul Maitinsky, and he is the curator of school programs at the Hudson River Museum and also is the curator of the model trains. And we have some model trains and some other things to show you. I'm sure it's going to be an interesting and informative program for you. And so it seems to me that putting together an exhibit of this scope, and I've seen it twice already, is enormous. So the real question is, how long have you been working on the railroad?
Probably for about 3 or 4 years. I think we started thinking about that when we were doing the Croton Aqueduct show in '92, because those were 2 really formative factors in how Westchester developed in the 19th century. First, you had the Croton Aqueduct coming through in the early 1840s, and right after that, the railroads arrived. So that got us thinking about having another show that would continue the story of Westchester's history.
When I know you've been on this program before, and we've talked before. When you plan, do you start with an idea and say, "It would be great to do," and then you say, "Is it practical to do?" Or do you say, "Hey, the world is ours, let's go out and do it"? I suppose that's true in anything that you do.
You think about all those things. I mean, you think, you see the train going by the museum every day, and you think, hey, the train in Westchester. The more you dig on this topic, though, it's so huge. It was more a matter of limiting things. I think we must have visited or talked to almost every historical society in Westchester that's along the railroad. Everyone had lots of stuff. Everyone was very generous, and it was really a matter of limiting it. At one point, there were almost 90 stations in Westchester, so it's a big story.
It's interesting to me how you've laid it out in 3 different sections, and let's talk a little bit about your aspect of it, the model trains, because 1/3 of this exhibit is trains. What I find interesting, and maybe it's a surprise and we shouldn't tell people, but the fact is that there's a track running around way up high, and the train just keeps running around and around and around. Now, I happened to be at the museum before that portion of the exhibit was open. I saw these men working on something up there, and I didn't know what they were doing. Well, actually, we're building a shelf on which to put the tracks.
That's right. One of the wonderful things about the exhibit is that we have working layouts. There are actually model trains that are running throughout. There are 3 working layouts in the exhibit, and the one that you're talking about is a G-scale layout, which is literally suspended around a closet that the train is actually running between the 2 galleries, so people in the main exhibit can catch a glimpse of a model train and know that there's something else happening over there. It's a very large train, and it's a lot of fun. It's one of the funnest trains in the exhibit.
And one of the things that I like about this exhibit, I've been there with children, the 7-year-old and the 5-year-old, and then on my second visit, I went with a model train enthusiast. Both of these groups enjoyed the exhibit because it appeals to everybody. It has something for everybody in there. Let's stay with trains for a minute. And we do have here, we're showing one of the model trains that you have. They come in different sizes, which is interesting to me too. But this is kind of a typical black train. It's a smaller train. How did you determine what was going to be in this train portion of the exhibit?
Well, that was kind of one of the hardest parts, similar to the main exhibit, in that there's there's such a great story in model trains, and deciding what we were not going to do was as difficult as deciding what we were going to do. But one of the things I wanted to articulate in the show was that there's a difference between toy model trains and scale model trains. And so what you have here is a scale model train. It's an HO, New York Central Putnam Division locomotive, and it's really a scale model. It does function. It does actually run on track, but the main difference is that it strives for realism. It's trying to look.
Not all model trains are realistic.
No, not necessarily. Some are fantasy and fun. They mix playful elements, color, and obviously they're all based somehow on a real train and function like a train and appear as if they're like all
Talking
other
about
trains.
color, why don't you remove this one, and while you're doing that, we'll talk a little bit to
Okay.
Laura, and then we'll talk about something in color on the trains. Now, the other parts, there are two other parts of the exhibit, right? What are they?
Well, there's an exhibit, All Aboard, Advertising in the Railroad. That's in the upstairs of the museum. And in the main exhibit, we focused on the railroad in Westchester, but there's so many great artifacts advertising the long-distance travel and the romance of the train for getting away on vacation. And there's great art, and we wanted to incorporate that. So we organized a special exhibit just about those artifacts. That was curated by Ellen Kiter, our assistant curator.
Are they all posters?
Most of them are posters to advertise the railroad, and most of them are New York Central. A lot of them are the famous trains like the Empire State Express. That's the one that we did bring, if we could show it, I don't know.
Yeah.
And the 20th Century Limited.
Well, you brought some other things along. Why don't you bring one of the things up here and put it on where everybody can see it, and we'll talk about some of the things that are part of the exhibit.
All right.
What shall it be?
Well, I was going to bring this. Relates to what we were talking about before.
What is it?
A piece of coal. This is anthracite coal, actually.
It's just a piece of coal, and that is, of course, part of the...
Well, one of the things that we wanted for people to realize about the difference between traveling on the train now and then, I mean, really, once the train started running, you could get back and forth to New York just like today, but it wasn't as comfortable, and it was often very dirty because they were burning coal. Well, first they were burning wood, then they switched to coal, and there was coal dust and cinders coming out of the locomotive, and if you wanted to, get a little ventilation and open the window, you'd be covered in soot, and also be smelling, poisonous fumes, and so, it wasn't as comfortable as today with all the air conditioning and the electric.
But coal played, and of course, we remember seeing the films of people stoking that coal and pouring.
Oh, sure. I mean, they had to stop every 40 miles, the locomotives, to get more water and coal. That's how much that they used. And the fireman who sat in the cab with the engineer, his job was to keep the fire going with the coal. And if you see in some of the pictures of them standing by the locomotives, they're always covered in grime. I mean, how
do you represent this in the exhibit? This is one piece of coal.
Well, we talk a lot about, as you said, there's setups in the exhibit where there's people in train cars from different periods, and we talk about what their ride would have been like. There's also an interactive where you can see a bucket of coal and touch a little device that puts something on your hand. It's not real coal, but and see how it would mess up a window, and imagine trying to look through the window when it's really covered with coal dust and you can't see the palisades like we can today.
Let's bring up some of the other things that you have brought along.
Okay.
We'll take the coal out of here.
Well, speaking of the firemen and other people that work for the railroad, I mean, half of the exhibit is about stations and rail yards and who works there. This is a telegraph key, and some of the most important people that worked on the railroad were not the engineers, but the people that kept the trains moving safely, like the telegraph operators. And station agents would all have to know Morse code. And there were no, radios on the trains back then. If there was a problem and the schedule was changed, they had to keep wiring up the line until they reached a station agent, and he said, "The train's not passed yet. I can get them a message." And they would go outside, hold up a big hoop with the note attached, and they would catch it.
Catch it as they went by.
Yep.
You have a lot of video and films that are running during this exhibit with narration, some large, some small, in a setting. The building of the railroads, of course, is an interesting part of it.
Right.
And this may look very pedestrian to most people, but it's a railroad spike.
Right.
Don't use them today anymore, I guess.
They do. Some of them look different than that, but they do. We have a setup, actually. Metro North came in and set up some track in the usual way. It was set up in the past so that people can touch it and really see it up close and see, where the spikes go and the rail anchors and how it all fits together on the ties. I think, kids and adults enjoy that a lot.
One of the most important parts of any train, of course, is the conductor, the man who's in there. And I guess we couldn't bring a live conductor here, but we almost did, right?
Right.
Represented with a conductor. They haven't changed very much in modern day, have they?
No, I mean, we do have a mannequin in the exhibit in front of our station that people can walk in, and he's wearing a New York Central conductor's uniform. And this is a hat of Penn Central, which I guess it might be a rarity because Penn Central only existed for a couple of years in the late 1960s when New York Central merged with the Pennsylvania Railroad. But the conductor, he is like the captain of the ship. And I don't think everybody realizes that when people are wandering
He's
out.
in charge.
He's in charge of the train, even today. I checked that with them. But it's his train, not the engineer's train. And he makes sure it's safe to leave the station. And he says all aboard because he is a captain of a ship.
He's the one who decides when to go.
Yep.
Talking about conductor, I think that one thing that hasn't changed very much is the punch.
Right.
However, the old one, side by side, does look a little different.
Right. I think the smaller one probably is older. The railroad was one of the first industries. It was the first industry that had employed such enormous amounts of people over such a great area. I mean, it was a difficult management problem for the railroad owners. And one of the problems was so many different employees took in money because conductors could sell tickets on the train right from the start.
Yes.
And the punch really involved as a counterbalance for checking out that, they were getting all the money in, and each punch had a different shape, so you knew, which conductor,
still does, as I recall.
which conductor punched that ticket.
I do want to make sure that our viewers know that we're talking about the exhibit on trains, which is in the Hudson River Museum, and we're getting an insight into the old days, what's going on there, and we're going to see some more model trains. But we do have something here. Laura, why don't you talk about the poster?
Oh, okay. Well, as I said, upstairs there's an exhibit all aboard about railroad advertising art, and this poster is the Empire State Express passing West Point, I believe. And in the early 20th century, there was a wealth of railroad advertising art. A lot of artists like Walter Green and Leslie Reagan made their fame painting these paintings that the posters were made from. And we actually have 6 original oil paintings in the exhibit that the posters were made from. But this is one of the posters, and the Empire State Express is one of the most famous trains that ever was. It started running in the late 19th century. The logo for the exhibit is based on the Empire State Express, and this is a more up-to-date, streamlined locomotive pulling the Empire State Express in the 20th century.
And of course, we can't talk about trains without showing some more trains. Why don't you bring up that very colorful one there? We'll talk about it a little bit. And when I say colorful, I'm not joking. A pink locomotive? How come?
This was manufactured by the Lionel Corporation, and it was called the Lady Lionel. And essentially, in 1957, they decided to make some model trains to attract young girls into the hobby of model railroading. And it's just a really colorful, fun version of a model train. I like it because a lot of the trains that we have are grays or black. Those are the colors of the trains that ran.
Did it sell?
Actually, it didn't really work, or that's what I've read. And it was just a fun version anyway, and collectors have enjoyed it, and people did buy it, but it never really worked in terms of getting girls into trains.
So would you say that this is a collector's item?
This is actually a reproduction. This is a 1991 reproduction of the 1957 train, but it is already a collector's item. Lionel only produced it for a short period of time, and people are really enjoying collecting them right now, too.
Now, I noticed in the exhibit that there were trains of many different sizes. Why don't we bring up another size and talk about something like that? Now, they are in different sizes for what reason?
They are, well, this is a G-scale train, and obviously one of the first things is that it's larger, and so you can handle it easier. It runs better. It's a little bit easier to actually run larger trains, technically.
So they're all built to scale, aren't they?
Not all of the
really?
trains are actually accurate reproductions. This would be a G-scale train, and it is fairly accurate reproduction of the pacemaker box cars that ran in the New York Central region.
So people actually have train setups with trains of this size?
Yes. Yeah, these are very popular actually with garden model railroading.
Okay.
People will actually run these trains not only in their home, but will run them outside and will actually sculpt their gardens, if you will, and run them all through all the seasons.
I mean, just to see the trains running is such great appeal to the kids, and you actually have something that's hands-on, that they can actually, these little wooden tracks and trains that the kids can put together and assemble right there.
Yeah, that's right. We have a Brio train interactive as well, which are the wooden toy trains, Brio wooden toy trains, and there are 4 stations, and kids get to manipulate the trains and manipulate the track, and there are actually 4 particular problems that kids get to solve in that interactive.
You know, it seems to me that not only is it time-consuming and a great deal of planning, but putting together an exhibit like this costs money.
That's true.
Is there community support? Is there corporate support?
We had so much support, it's almost hard to name it all. I mean, in the very early days, we had a planning grant from the National Endowment for the Humanities. Later on, we had grants from the New York State Council on the Arts and the New York State Council on the Humanities. We also had generous funding from Citibank, and not to mention countless hours of community input from people that came and just talked to us about what they might expect to see in this kind of exhibit, to the Yonkers Model Railroad Club, who's at the museum building a model of the Yonkers waterfront. It's hard to thank everybody that helped us out.
I was at the opening, and I noticed that several people were wearing railroad hats. Enthusiasts, I assume.
Enthusiasts, but also that was our junior docents too, from the Museum Junior High,
I did see that,
who have been taking people on tours through the exhibit.
Yes.
That's a special program that we have now.
This exhibit will run how long? This is all summer, isn't it?
Yes, it is through the summer. That way we have lots of time for lots of different kind of programming, and people can come back and see it more than once. And
as I have already, and
that's what people have been telling me, that there's enough to see to come back for several visits.
You really can go in and see more, and there's so much to offer at the museum. Right. And you've got the planetarium, which is free Friday nights, isn't it?
That's true. Texaco sponsors that. Yeah.
And you got this wonderful cafe that I think is a great place. I know it was especially set up in the opening, but they do serve lunch there,
brunch on Sundays,
and lunch, and also on the evenings and Friday nights they're open, aren't they?
For dinner, right.
And then of course the wonderful Red Groom's shop, where you have a lot of items in there, which are tied into the exhibit.
Yeah, we actually had a special cap made up with the logo
of
the exhibit, the same one that's on the invitation.
So there's there's so much going on.
And don't
there
forget the mansion.
And the mansion.
Because Mr. Trevor, who lived in the mansion, was a commuter.
That's right. And you're going to do some work on the mansion. You did your big fundraising auction and.
Oh, definitely. There's a huge restoration project starting with the mansion.
Busy place, isn't it?
Yes.
Let's show some more trains, Jean
Okay.
Paul. I know
Sure.
you've got some more there.
I brought 2 more trains. This is by Lionel, and this is called the Aquarium Car. And one of the things I really like about this train is that as it's running down the tracks, the fish inside swim. So they're actually swimming as it's running down the tracks.
Caused by?
Well, they're on a loop on the inside, so they're really, but they appears that they're swimming, and that's just a lot of fun.
The color, that's not an authentic color.
No, not necessarily. I don't think they're actually, well, actually there were cars that carried all kinds of freight, including fish and animals, but this is a toy train, and this is just something colorful that Lionel decided to make. Yeah.
And you've got one more over there, which I find very interesting.
Yeah, this is another Lionel train called the Bronx Zoo train. And you can see that.
Did I see that giraffe moving?
That giraffe? Actually, I don't. He might move. I'm not certain.
To go under the tunnels,
But we have a giraffe sticking out there, and he's kind of happily running along the railroad. Yeah, there you go.
What's the reaction that you have from people? You have these individual setups of actually cars from different eras.
Right.
And the people are in costume. They're reading the literature of the day. They're dressed in the clothes of the day. What's the reaction you get to people?
It's been overwhelmingly positive. I think one of the things that we really wanted to do, we realized even though trains were so important in the history of Westchester, that not everybody takes them and not everybody wants to, from just a little photo, imagine what it was like to be on a train back then. So that was one reason why we built the station, which is modeled on the old Glenwood station. And you can go up to a train car that has Washington Irving sitting in it, and he's right there when you're reading about what he did and didn't like about the train. I think it gives it an immediacy that really grabs people.
It projects you back in time, really.
Right.
I mean, you can really feel as if you're in that era. You also have pictures of the various stations, don't you have them?
Yes, inside the station we have a lot of exhibitry about the life of the station. What did it mean to the community? A lot of towns in Westchester didn't even exist until the railroad plopped a station there, and then a town grew up around it. Mount Kisco was sort of like that. There was 2 communities to either side of the railroad, and everything kind of gravitated over to the railroad. And we have some pictures of some of the old stations.
So what you're saying then is that the railroad created the communities, the location of the railroad created the communities? In
a lot of cases, sure. I mean, that was especially in the center of the county. Before that, if you had farm products, you had to toil along, an unpaved road all the way over to Ossining or Peekskill to get on a sloop to bring everything down to the city. I mean, people on the river and on the Sound had easier time of it, but people in the center, had no way to get places except by foot or by horse.
Are towns named after railroad stations?
In a way. I mean, Purdy's was called Purdy's Station in the old days. Now I think people just call it Purdy's. And also, there was another one like that. I can't think right now, but it was, a lot of them were called the something station because the town grew up around the station. Later on, people dropped off the station.
As you come up, you've got Scarsdale, Hartsdale, and I'm just wondering if Hartsdale doesn't exist except it's only a part of Greenburgh, actually. I'm just wondering if it wasn't created as a result of the station being there. Right.
That one was called Hart's Corners. I mean, a lot of the early stations were named after, say, the nearest farm or the nearest big property, and then a whole community developed there. Or I think there was in Scarsdale, there was the Popham Estate, and they convinced the railroad to stop there, and it was just on a platform, on their property at first.
Really?
I mean, yeah.
One of the things that we want to be sure to do is to tell people what number they can call to get more information about the hours and any other information about the exhibit. So what is the number for the Hudson River Museum?
Sure, it's 963-4550.
Of course, that's a 914 number.
Yes,
and we'll put that up in the closing credits so people can get that as well. Having worked on this, both of you, for such a long time, and then to see it come to life, I suppose this is true on any exhibit. How do you respond to the reactions of the people? You're in there, you see what's going on. Is it gratifying? Is it like, hey, let's put on a show, and now we open the curtain, and here's the reaction of the people?
Well, I mean, I feel that way incredibly, because at the end of an exhibit, you're working long hours, you're so tired, you don't know if you're ever going to, make it through. And then to see everybody come in and the way they react and what they get out of it, you think, that's why I have this job. It's really worth it, especially when the school kids come in. I'm sure John Paul would say the same thing.
That's one of the things that I like so much about this museum. It's so school-oriented, not only the museum schools, but also the fact that you have such great school programs. I've been there on weekdays, and the kids are there, and it really brings the place alive when you see things like that. It must be gratifying to you.
Yeah, it really is. It's wonderful to see both on the weekend and during the week the public in there and just really enjoying the exhibits in the museum. And then, of course, during the week, all the school kids that we have, they get to come and they get to explore the exhibit and spend time in the planetarium. They often sort of make a whole day of it, and it's just, they have a great time. It's a special thing. I can vouch
for the effectiveness of the exhibit. As I say, I've been there twice, and I'm going again, and I must say that I'm so grateful that you both came here and talked to us about the wonderful exhibit, and thank you very much. We've been talking today about the Trains exhibit, 3 exhibits actually, at the Hudson River Museum. It's there through September 1st. It's a great exhibit. Go see it. You'll enjoy it. I'm Norman Liss. The name of the program is The Way to Go, and until next time, enjoy yourself.